So our last presentation before we close is going to be from John Rauch, and he is one of our staff members who's been doing regionalization work for over 20 years in the Great Lakes region, mostly in Ohio, but not just in Ohio. So he's going to tell you a little bit about some of his experiences and also how RCAP can be that third-party facilitator and can also, help you guys through this process. John.
Okay. Thanks, Sarah. Okay, I'm from Ohio. I've been working in the Great Lakes states, several of them, and I may not speak your language exactly. Please don't bear that against me, because we use principal forgiveness instead of grant for the clean water and drinking water loans. But I do want to tell you before I get started 3 things about myself, and I'm going to do it in reverse order. I've had 32 weeks of negotiation and conflict training from Notre Dame. Since 2008, I've pretty much exclusively been working with shared services and regionalization projects, and the very first one made me physically ill. I was looking at the numbers and going, those people don't make sense. So it is that human factor there that really gets fun to deal with sometimes. But where's the clicker?
Up here, John. Yep.
Thank you. Gotta have the clicker. Okay. I want to talk about 3 case studies. There are some more, but I'm keeping you from your, Sarah and I are keeping you from your cars today, so let's limit it to 3. Sound fair enough? The first one is Coshocton, West Lafayette. Then we got a nice sewer project down in southern Ohio. It's in Appalachia. And then EJ Water, that's a not-for-profit out in Illinois. So, first thing, this is West Lafayette. I kind of like to look at this case as the tale of 2 mayors, because the 2 mayors would meet at meetings quite a bit, and they talked about different things, and they were really the spark plugs on this deal. As you can see, less than 1,000 customers, and I think this is pretty telling right here. Their rates were around $25. They almost needed to double them, and the chair of the utility committee, and Ben helped work on this one too, because we kind of wanted to have a little bit of separate representation. But and if I remember right, the chair of the utility committee almost threw me out when I threw that number at him, and he said, well, I've never got that kind of money. And I said, yeah, but you probably needed it. Coshocton, a much larger town, and how we got to know those is, give or take 10, 12 years ago, they had a similar dispute with the county that they called us up and we helped them come to a resolution there. But Coshocton has 36,000 and the county serves smaller, so that got them under the 10,000 in population. Anyway, subsequently, there was the paper mill moved out of Coshocton. And they asked us to come up and do a rate study, so I did go up and do a rate study under a direct contract with them, and they'd already raised the rates 30%. So they had a significant rate increase. Now look at the paper mill. It used about a third of their water capacity. So when that customer moved out, that really hurt them. We came back with recommendations, 10% increase, 3% thereafter. So Coshocton wanted to sell water. As I said earlier, the mayors had been talking. They got along great. There was a little bit of rivalry. There was some school things going on I got to hear about and some other non-pragmatic issues. I just kind of, this is rural America. Anyway, talked to the SRF, and there was some principal forgiveness from some extra grant available for regional projects in Ohio. And the plan was to use the SRF to install a transmission main and run water over to West Lafayette. Through further conversations and discussions back and forth, they decided West Lafayette wanted to get out of the water business because of where their rates needed to be, and there was a plume, which I didn't put on my slide, but there was a plume. It wasn't in the wells, but it was moving closer. There's more about this case study, and one of the things I liked about this one is we were able to come up with a mutual gains or win-win situation. West Lafayette actually got a $2 per month per user on the average bill decrease in their water rates. Usually don't recommend decreases, but in this situation it did make sense because that brought them in at the same rate that Coshocton customers were. The other mutual gain is Coshocton got to restore back that 30% by selling additional water to West Lafayette. So that was that's a nice one to show some mutual gains. Curtis Strickland from Jackson, Ohio, actually worked on this project. As you can see from all the squiggly lines, that's pretty rough turf down there. That's in Athens County, Ohio, probably about 20 miles off of the Ohio River up in the hills. It is a fairly desolate, and it's one of the economic depressed areas. So this was a sewer project. Carbon Hills unincorporated, I think Mary City's incorporated, and Nelsonville's incorporated. There were 5 government entities involved. And the teaser here was, we have a Small Communities Environmental Infrastructure Group. That's where all the funders get together and talk to people about projects. So all these units of government and representatives from the localities went in and they did a presentation to the Small Communities Environmental Infrastructure Group, and that was a joint effort between RCAP and all the funding agencies to get this funded, and it is obligated. USDA is a lead funder, but there's lots of other CDBG, there's Ohio Public Works Commission, Appalachian Regional Commission, and funding is what really got this project off the ground. It lowered the O&M cost. It got Buckle and Murray City out of the treatment because it's all going to Nelsonville. And, Murray City, Buckle's the one that got out of the treatment business. And Murray City and Carbon Hill were unsewered, so that was a nice driver for the project to get that grant. And Nelsonville is increasing, and they got a nice funding package to increase the capacity of the sewer plant to serve the new customers. EJ Water. Zach gets to see that a little bit because that's kind of in Illinois and just probably a couple hours from where he works. EJ Water is a very progressive not-for-profit, and they've developed a la carte services. And billing is one of my pet peeves. Everybody thinks they have to have their own billing software. That means they got to have somebody to run the software, and they've got to do all this other stuff, which just costs money. But the one nice thing about EJ Water is we were at a meeting in Northern Illinois about 2 years ago, and a representative from EJ Water came up, talked to the community, and said $3 per month per user is what it would cost you to for us to do the complete billing and administrative service, send you a report, send you a check every month. They have a lock box and everything, paid by phone. This community didn't have any of that. And you start figuring out what a clerk cost you. That $3 per user per month on 500 customers, pretty good deal, isn't it? So that was one of the services. They do operation services, they do bog water, and they will consider consolidations. And we've had several conversations with them, and this is, I heard it this morning, this business about getting another water system with a pig in the poke. Talked to the general manager, Bill Tech Miller, about that a little bit, and some of the things we have planned in the future, do some water audits, do some diagnostic work. We do have some equipment, mag meters, valve turners, to go out there and get a handle on that system, be able to give a report back so they can start quantifying what capital needs, or what the immediate capital needs of that system. So that's kind of taking that pig out of the poke and getting that larger system to work with a smaller system if there's a consolidation in the future. EJ was also, they had a remote area that they won, United Waters started up between about, 5 villages, Zach?
Yeah.
5 villages in the area. EJ is one of the board members because part of their customers in the rural area are part of this United Water. So it's kind of all over the board. And if you would see we call it the war room, the telemetry, it's Star Trek. Big screens all the way around the room. I mean, they are very, very much an information organization. And I think the fact that they are so strong in the information business and analyzing this, they're willing to take on a little more risk because they've got some information and some stats to back it up. Okay. They do have a pretty good sized staff. One of the biggest challenges really is managing the contracts and getting along with all the different personalities and issues. Now, I think I want to do a demonstration on the spreadsheet. Can you get that up for me, Derek?
Yep.
Now, the spreadsheet that Derek's pulling up, that is on the Great Lakes Community Action Partnership website. It's GLCAP.org. Go to RCAP, go to Ohio, go to Tools, and you'll find a spreadsheet that looks like this. And if you're working with, and you're just wanting to do some fine tuning of alternatives, or maybe you want to just kind of throw some stuff up against the wall, you can use this tool, and it's going to give you down here, it gives you the impact to the customer rates every month. There we go. So you can see as we work through these alternatives, and I just threw some numbers up there, but when you add how much loan grant this is going to give, it does all the work for you and can come up with an alternative number so that you can sit there with the parties to be and throw that up on the wall. So that you folks that are in some of the quasi-mediation business and doing some facilitation out there with some systems, feel free to pull that down off our website. Please keep the RCAP logo on there so that they know where it come from, but you're welcome to use it. You can put all the loan information, all the grant information, and you can also put the dollars, after you've done some rate work, you can put the cost. If you've done some preliminary engineering, preliminary cost estimates, you can put that up there and start quantifying that out. So how am I doing on time?
You're
Good. 5
you got
minutes if
like
you want.
7 minutes.
7 minutes? Okay. Hit me with some questions so I don't have to talk anymore. Fair enough? They're tired. Yes, Sarah.
So one thing that I'd like you to share a little bit about is the incentive program that the state of Ohio had for a while to help incentivize regionalization projects.
Oh, I love that program. There for a while on a regional project, you could get 50% principal forgiveness, and that was on the drinking water projects. Clean water hasn't been quite so generous for the wastewater projects, but rural development is looking at the affordability. They're not. They'll give some extra points for regional projects, but the big one is the 50% principal forgiveness. It's probably going to go down a little bit this year. How much did Coshocton end up with, Ben?
It was 75 on design, 50 on construction.
Okay. So, it just depends on what kind of demand is in there because they only have so much CAP grant coming into the state. But they've been fairly generous, and I think I did get one. It was a small project, but I got one consolidation done a couple years. The first year they offered principal forgiveness, and I think it was close to 70%. So they really have a nice package to promote regionalization. And it's sticks and carrots. When we're having these conversations with primacy, they're really, there was one we sent them recently, we sent them a PER in to look at, and they were going to be dealing with a regional question, whether or not they should buy water, get out of the water business, or put in iron and manganese treatment. Unfortunately, Ben gets to work with them because it's too close to me. I've got too many relatives out there. And we'll see what happens to them, but drinking water's a little bit incensed about why they haven't taken care of things in the past. Why should we throw good money after bad and put in iron and manganese treatment out there forward? So they are starting to use sticks and carrots in combination, so that's kind of nice. Did that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, other questions? Well, thank you very much. And with that, I'm going to give it back to Sarah, and she is between you and your car.
Okay, thanks.